Moving on to game number 2, and this one we're going to be breaking down the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. This is also, this is the 3-6 matchup, between division rivals. Obviously, no Jared Goff, I'm thinking, at the start of this game, so it's going to be a big blow. But right away, first impressions, what do you guys got in this game?
I mean, I think you have to focus on the fact that Jared Goff may not play. I still don't think he's been ruled out, but just like a week and a half, 2 weeks from a thumb surgery is pretty tough, especially when it's on your thrown hand. So if he doesn't play, it's going to be hard pressed for the Rams, I think, to win the football game. Not because I don't think they'll keep it close. I mean, I still think they can, especially seeing as the Seahawks offense has kind of struggled down the stretch here, and their defense is pretty solid. But I think it'll just be too much. I think Russell and his great receivers will be too much at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I know this game is going to be close because that's how the Seahawks have played this entire season. It does not matter who they're playing. They could play the worst team in the league. They could play the best team in the league, and they're going to play them close no matter what. I don't know what it is, but their offense just kind of lets teams hang around until the fourth quarter for some reason. So I have a feeling it's going to be the same way. And if this game is close going into the fourth quarter, I don't know how you can take John Wolford or even Jared Goff over Russell Wilson in the fourth. So I agree. I think the Seahawks will pull it out, but I'm expecting it to be pretty close.
All right, well, let's dive right into the first matchup. We'll go probably the one that's most lopsided. We'll start with the Seahawks on offense, and we're going to go with that Seahawks offensive line against the Rams defensive line. You're looking at that O-line for the Seahawks. There they are. We see a lot of red, but just a reminder, the ratings don't match with what the season's been going so far. I just took them from lineups.com, so just don't get confused as you see, if you have any questions or see something weird about it, that's the reason why. But you can see the O-line, the stats are real. They gave up 48 sacks this year, tied for 5th most in the NFL, and they're going against the Rams D-line, which, has Aaron Donald. And, they got some great linebackers, which we'll talk about shortly here. 53 sacks, which is 2nd most in the NFL behind Pittsburgh. Obviously a dominant defensive force. So, I mean, it's pretty clear giving the Rams D-line the advantage here, but you guys want to talk about this matchup a little more?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just how many people they're going to throw at Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald against anybody's offensive line, I'm probably going to go with Aaron Donald because he is so dominant. And like I said, it just depends on how effective their offensive line is going to be against him and how many people it's going to take to be effective. Like I said, they are a 3-4 defense too. So if, I would maybe throw Michael Brockers in there. He's one of their rush specialists on the edge, but I'm assuming he'll come up in the linebacker portion for him. But he's just as good of a rusher on the other side. So you can throw as many people as you want at Aaron Donald, but I mean, Brockers is going to be right there in the backfield. So it just got to give Russell enough time to, make his reads, and then he can do the rest for himself. So, that'll be the key for the Seahawks offensive line. That is.
Yeah, and that's really the beauty of having such a dominant force in the middle of the line is if you have to take 2 to 3 guys to take him up and get him out of the way, that lets your pass rushers just get at it. I mean, they're getting one-on-one with everybody on that line. And from what we know about that line, it's not a very great one at protecting Russell Wilson. So definitely giving an edge to the Rams. And if they are going to win this game, I think they're going to have to get a ton of sacks, which is very possible in this matchup.
Yep, and we'll move right along. We'll go to the Seahawks running backs against the Rams linebackers. And I think this Rams defense is the number 1 defense in the league right now. But you're looking at the Seahawks running back. You have Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. I think Carlos Hyde is out for the game in this one. I don't think he's going to be able to play. I think he might be out for the year. I don't know if he's on IR, but I know he will not be playing at this one. And you're looking at the rushing yards, 123 yards per game, which is 12th most in the NFL. But they're going up against, this front 7, which is only allowed 91, which is 3rd fewest in the NFL, so top 3 rushing defense. And you're looking at total yards, they only give up 281 yards. So definitely, their front 7 is the main reason why their defense is so good. So, I mean, just front 7 versus, front 7, we got to give it to the Rams. But I'll pass it on and get your guys' opinion.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, I'd actually give the edge to the Seahawks running backs. Chris Carson hasn't played he didn't play in the middle of the season, and so I think that their rushing touchdowns and their rushing yards per game, could be a little bit more if he would have been employed all year and had been effective as he has been in the last couple seasons. And I say that also for the fact that the Rams linebackers. I mean, you're looking at them. You see Leonard Floyd and Samson Ebukam. Like those guys are good rushers, and that plays into what the Rams defense wants to do. They want to create pressure on the quarterback. So if the Seahawks can stick to a ground game, I think that they can certainly control the clock and move their way down the field pretty effectively and not have to rely on Russell Wilson. Because not that they're bad linebackers by any means, but Troy Reader and Natrez Patrick, I mean, those guys are average linebackers, and they're not bad by any means, but they're certainly not tops in the NFL.
Yeah, the linebackers for the Rams are certainly not their strength. I mean, their strength is up front and then in the secondary. I mean, if there's one area of this defense that you can exploit, if you can get to that level, it's these linebackers. So. Yeah, I mean, Chris Carson, like you said, he's been not healthy all season long, but when he has been out there, he has been pretty effective. So, I mean, if they can just try to run the shit out of him and get some consistent ground game going, I'll give the edge to the Seahawks as well.
Yeah, and I forgot to add Michael Brocker still on this. I thought he wasn't going to play this week, but I think he's expected to return. I think he's kind of questionable, but just throw him in there as well as another great front seven guy to add to that team. But we can move on now to probably the most fun matchup people are going to keep an eye on is, DK Metcalf. I can just find where I have it. There we go. We got the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers versus that Rams secondary. Obviously, everyone's looking at DK Metcalf versus Jaylen Ramsey. It's surprising, the Seahawks, though, getting yards has kind of been a struggle for them in the air. They're at 246, which is like right in the middle of the NFL, but they do throw a lot of passing touchdowns, so it's been kind of that year where they let Russ get going at the end of the game, and that's where they seems to be getting their most of the yards from. But then you're looking at the other side of the ball. You got the secondary that's been elite. 190.7 passing yards per game, which is the fewest in the NFL. Obviously thanks to that D line up front helps limit that. But then they only give up 19 points a game, and that's why they're the number one defense in the league. But looking at this matchup, who you guys giving the advantage to?
Okay, so Bowling doesn't want to take the reins. God, how do you do that every time? It's so great.
Every time.
I just don't want to go first every time. I try to give you a first crack sometimes, but
I like just repeating everything you say, but finding different ways to say it.
Well, I can keep doing it, but anyway, obviously the big matchup here is DK Metcalf and Jaylen Ramsey. I'm going to probably give the edge a little bit to the Seahawks receivers just because Troy Hill, is serviceable on the other side of Jaylen Ramsey. Jaylen Ramsey is elite. John Johnson is a great safety. Fuller's a really solid safety as well. But like I said, the Seahawks also have Tyler Lockett, and it's perfect for them because they never really go off. DK and Tyler Lockett, they don't go off in the same week generally. I think they might have a few games where they're both doing really well, but the Seahawks are great at exploiting who's got a better matchup. And, like last week, I think, Tyler Lockett had 2 touchdowns and like 100 yards, and DK had like 4 catches for 40 yards. And the next week, then DK is going to have like 120, and then Tyler Lockett has like 2 catches. So they just play the hot hand. And I think just being able to do that and not, kind of telegraph who's going to be the guy, or, you don't have to force feed one of them because that's your number one. I think that just gives them the edge based on, the element of surprise. And I think in general, one of the matchups this year, DK got the better of Jaylen Ramsey, and I think the other one, Jaylen Ramsey, got the better of DK. So it's going to be a great matchup to watch for those guys this weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the other way. I'll give the edge to the Rams secondary. I mean, we see here fewest passing yards per game in the league, 190. That's just sick. And I think, you can't really understate Jaylen Ramsey's just ability to eliminate somebody from the game. And if you're looking at Seattle, I mean, the kind of year that DK Metcalf has had, if Jaylen Ramsey can have one of those big games that we've seen from him and just take DK Metcalf out of the game, I think that does completely change Seattle's offense. I know they have Tyler Lockett as well, which you mentioned. They kind of go back and forth and play the matchup. So Lockett is going to have to probably play a big impact in this one. But to take DK out of the game, which I think Jaylen could do, I just think that's so huge.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And but like Zinke said, you take DK out, you got Tyler Lockett there. He's just almost, he's not as as much of a deep threat, but nice guy, a nice possession receiver to move the ball, the chains for Russell to drop the ball down to. But yeah, so that'll be a fun matchup. Seeing how Russell can do against this LA defense. So we can flip the script and we can now talk about the Rams offense versus the Seahawks defense, and we'll start with the O-lines up front. This Rams, offensive line had a pretty solid year. They're just average, they're keeping the quarterback up, which is good. 25 sacks allowed, which is tied for 6th fewest in the NFL. So, they're keeping Goff up. I mean, well, I guess this one will be Wolford maybe. So that's nice. And they're going up against this Seattle defense, which gets sacks. They had 46 on the year, which is 7th most in the NFL. So that's going to be a fun battle to keep an eye on to see if the Seahawks will be able to get to Wolford or not. And, but surprisingly, too, they were able to shut the run down, this Seahawks defense. They only allowed 3.9 yards per carry, which I'm assuming the Rams are going to be relying on the run in this game. So throw it over to you guys. How do you feel about this matchup?
I think in this one, I'm going to give the slight edge to the Rams offensive line. It is a little bit unfortunate because they lost Andrew Whitworth during the season to a ACL, I believe, tear. So if they had him, it would be a lot more comfortable picking. I would be a lot more comfortable picking them. But I mean, the Rams have 2 Badgers on their offensive line, so I mean, you can't understate that. Badgers, O-line you. But the Seahawks certainly are like a quietly productive bunch. I mean, Jerron Reed, I think he's a 1st-round pick a couple of years ago. Carlos Dunlap is a little bit up there in age, so I mean, guys that aren't huge names, but they get the best out of them, and I think that is huge for a defense that in the beginning of the year was not playing up to their traditional elite level that they have been in past years. So these front 4 are certainly going to be a test for the Rams.
Yeah, I would probably side with the Seahawks defensive line. I mean, honestly, I don't really love either of these sides. And AJ, I don't know what kind of graphic we got going on here, but we've got 3 tackles for the Rams.
Yeah,
and
so that's their starting lineup. So they have them listed as tackle, but they had to move a tackle to a guard. So
okay, so maybe that's their problem. They're trying to start 3 tackles.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I mean, they've got some pedigree on that defensive line for the Seahawks, some experience there. So I would lean towards them. But like I said, I don't really love either of those sides for each of those teams.
All right, and we can move on to the next one then, where we're going to compare the Rams running backs against the Seahawks linebackers. Obviously, you have Akers, Brown, and Henderson. They've kind of been I don't really know if you can call them a 3-headed monster, but, they all split some carries. They had 126 yards on the ground, which is top, 10th most in the NFL. Just snuck in the top 10. Same thing with rushing touchdowns at 19. But then you look at the other side of the ball. Bobby Wagner's had another fantastic year. You got KJ Wright had another good year for the Seahawks linebacking crew, and the rushing yards. As bad as everyone said the Seahawks defense was, they've only allowed 95.6 yards on the ground in all season, which is 5th fewest in the NFL. But we'll see why their total yards is at 380 once we get to their secondary. But who are you guys giving the edge to in this matchup?
Easiest matchup ever. I mean, AJ, you talked about how these ratings on this graphic are BS. Well, Bobby Wagner's is right. 99 they gave him. I think that's true. He is one of the best middle linebackers that I've seen in a long time. That guy just continues to play. Just can't say enough about Bobby Wagner. But anyways, on the other side, Cam Akers has come along nicely. We saw him have a few big weeks at the end of the season, but overall, those guys are just so inexperienced. I mean, Malcolm Brown started out decent, and then he kind of disappeared. Darrell Henderson, we haven't really seen him step up at all. Last year he was supposed to be the guy when Todd Gurley left and Herm was hurt, and just never really seen any production out of him. At this point, Cam Akers has got to be the lead back for him, but the edge is definitely going to Seattle.
Yeah, Boley hit it, pretty squarely on the head. I think as a collective unit, the Rams running backs pose a decent challenge for the linebacking core there. But, none of them are, a complete back. Cam Akers is probably the closest thing they have to a complete back. He can catch a little bit out of the backfield, and he's pretty solid in between the tackles. But Malcolm Brown is their power back, and then Darrell Henderson is probably their third down back. So, like I said, collectively as a unit, they're certainly not bad. But Bobby Wagner, really all you need to say for that linebacking unit. And I also think that those ratings are maybe Madden ratings, because that seems to be maybe it might be a trend. I think that's what it is, because I think Aaron Donald was a 99, Bobby Wagner's a 99. I mean, those are the guys that are 99 in Madden, so maybe they just pulled those.
That's it. Yeah. But we'll move on. This is probably going to be the one I'm most curious about, is the Rams receiving core against the Seahawks secondary. As you can see, the Seahawks have allowed 285 yards per game, which is second most in the NFL. I think only behind the Houston Texans, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember that one, but it's weird because the opponent pass rating is only 90.2, which is 11th best. So it's those stats kind of contradict themselves a little bit. When you're looking at the other side of the ball, it's kind of hard to if John Wolford's going to be the guy leading the way for the Rams. It's kind of hard to look at their stats all season, but Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, hopefully Kupp plays, but both those guys are pretty good wide receivers. And you got Tyler Higbee had a nice year as well at the tight end spot for them. But depending how Wolford do, who are you going to give the edge to in this matchup?
I think I'm going to. I mean, this one is tough. I think that the secondary for the Seahawks was certainly plagued by not having Jamal Adams the whole year. He missed, I think probably like 5-6 weeks in the middle of the season. I think he's even questionable for this game. I'm gonna guess he'll play though. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna want to sit this one out. But not having him certainly hurts, especially when you go out and trade a first round pick for him. And they have come along, certainly in the second half of the season here when, kind of at a good time, because their offense kind of cooled down real fast. And so their defense needed to start to step up to keep them in ball games. And I'll probably give the edge to them, especially if Jared Goff is not playing. If not, it certainly makes it a little bit more even. But Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee, and even Gerald Everett. I was gonna say his name was eluding me there, but those guys are all very, very solid and reliable options. I don't think any one of those guys are, again, not necessarily elite superstar level. Maybe Kupp and Woods are nearing that, but Reynolds is very solid. He's by no means a slouch, and Higbee and Everett are great safety blankets for any quarterback. So very, very complete unit for the Rams receivers.
Yeah, eliminate John Wolford from this equation. I think I probably would give the edge to the Rams just because they have so many weapons. With him, maybe we're selling him short. He didn't play awful last week. He went, 22 of 38. He didn't have any touchdowns and he had a pick, but I've seen a lot worse numbers out of a guy making his first career start, especially against, he's playing Seattle, right?
No,
Arizona. Yeah. I was like, wait, this isn't a rematch. I knew it was a decent team. But, yeah, maybe he's going to come out and have the game of his life. Don't think so. So I'm giving the edge to Seattle here, but never know.
Here we go. We're going to do our final predictions then. Who do you guys think will win this game?
Well, I kind of alluded to it in the beginning. If Jared Goff plays, I can definitely see the Rams winning. Even if he does play, I'm not so certain how healthy he will be. So I got to go with the Seahawks, and I think it'll be something like 24-10. I just don't think that Wolford's going to be able to get enough offense going to keep him in this one.
Yeah, I said earlier, I think this one is going to be close, and I'm sticking to that. I'd say like a 21-17 Seattle.
I'm doing it, boys. I'm taking the Rams in this one. I like that defense too much. Defense wins championships. You got Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in the league. I'm gonna ride them. They'll get some big turnovers. I'm gonna go 20-17 Rams. And that'll do it for this one. For everyone watching along, make sure you comment below and tell us who you think will win this one. And if you haven't seen our first video yet, go out and watch our Colts-Bills preview. That one's pretty dynamite as well. But until next time, see you then. All right.